Welcome to the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools learning module on expanding the meaning of safety. The learning modules have been built into the application process for the Prize for Teaching Excellence as a way for excellent skilled trades teachers to share their knowledge with one another. We're excited to see how you might take our presenters' ideas and run with them in your own classroom. Our goal is to build a community of educators who are passionate about teaching the skilled trades. Our presenter today is Kyle Thompson, one of the 2020 prize winners and a construction teacher at Middleton High School in Tampa, Florida. Best of luck!
A vast majority of CTE instructors have a safety program, but a lot of them don't have a health and wellness program tied into it. And it's going to be a very easy thing to do as an instructors. Now, I actually offer a OSHA 30 course in my program where students can actually obtain their OSHA 30 hour in construction. And one of the things that's going to be added to my program is going to be adding a section on the mental health side of things and the well-being. And I give it 6 to 10 years before something that is going to be required for the OSHA 10s, OSHA 30s, and probably move into the 10s. I think it's a very, very big thing that is going to be coming down the pipeline, and maybe 6 years is too far out. It's something that OSHA is going to be recognizing before you know it, and you will be ahead of the game if you're incorporating that with your students. So you may have heard that dentists or police officers have high rates of suicides per occupation, but for 2012 and 2015, reported per the CDC, suicide was the highest rate for the occupation of construction. So I didn't know that, and here I am teaching construction. And I think as career technical education teachers, we should be aware of what risks there are and some of the data and some of the data and the statistics that we should be teaching and sharing. Sex education was something, should we not talk about it? It's something that we need to have the conversation about. Driver's ed, it's important to stay safe. We need to have that conversation. Okay. And the same thing with mental health and mental illness and keeping our students safe is something that we need to have that conversation from when they graduate in high school and when they graduate beyond, to be able to have that conversation now. And I think that's that paradigm shift that we all really need to acknowledge at this point. So some of the ways that we can connect some of our safety training and how we can have concrete examples to make it relevant to our students is promoting connectedness. In 1897, Emil Durkheim theorized that suicide was actually due to weak social bonds and the lack of connectedness. So the CDC's current approach to coping with suicide, and one of the big things that we have to deal with our students, is trying to build that connectedness. And that is something that has been theorized since 1897, when we've been trying to tackle this issue that is still the number one leading cause of death for our adolescents today. That's why it's so important. And one of the top leading causes of death in the construction industry. And so that's why this isn't something that is being swept under the rug anymore. And you can actually promote connectedness in your class. Promoting connectedness is actually creating what we call social capital. And having what we call social capital is making those connections between your peers, between your schools, between your neighborhoods. Well, guess what? We're in the schools, and that's how we're going to promote that connectedness. That's why we're pushing for this, because promoting that connectedness within your classroom setting, we're a vital piece of that puzzle. And we're also looking for those individuals that are not being connected to that. How can we connect with those students? What can we do to involve them? And that's one of those key pieces for the social integration of our students and keeping them aware of their mental health and knowing when to ask for help and keeping them safe and having them promote it to maybe somebody that they know. So if you fall under the career technical education umbrella, you're likely going to be aware of how tools work. And you know what? You have some really great tools at your school that perhaps you haven't utilized enough. And those are your guidance counselors. Those are your career counselors, your social workers. Hey, you may even have a school psychologist. You may have all kinds of different coworkers that you have that you may have never really brought into the classroom. And what type of avenues can you take to bring some of these specialized individuals in your classroom? What roles do they play? And what advantage does it have for your students? One of the number one things is empathic listening. Empathic listening means you can listen with empathy to your students without making judgments, without leading the conversation in any type of way. Because as a teacher, as an instructor, you're kind of in that tough spot. You can't really talk about politics if that's something that's really, getting a student going with something, but you can listen, and you can listen and become that mirror with that student and reflect back on them and ask questions for them to bring more information out and turn it back on them. And if they say something, don't lead them in the direction that you might go in. And this is hard to say, but it is something that as our students are faced with these issues, everything that's gone down with the pandemic and these concerns for safety and concerns for their mental health, we need to be that listener that can listen to these ideas, talk about these ideas, and really have the best influence on addressing these kind of concerns in the world. And it's weird to think that listening is one of the key ways of doing that. I think another big thing that you can throw into your safety toolbox is anxiety management, because one of the things that your students are faced with, and that lots of people are faced with, is anxiety. And there's so many different ways out there to manage your anxiety. It's nothing you can turn off with an off switch, but you can definitely manage it. And you can definitely help your students with skills on how can I address this? How can I make them feel comfortable talking about this? How can we help them understand what that anxiety is? Has it gotten to a point where they have issues with panic attacks to where it's scary and they don't understand it and they're not taking a class that might help them understand that? You're the safety instructor. And if you have a short section on that mental health awareness and you want to incorporate that, I couldn't think of a better resource you could offer to your students. Talk to your students about if they're feeling anxious, what can we do about it? There are so many different relaxation techniques, meditation, exercise, dieting, they all say it. There's so many different things you can do. It's pretty easy nowadays to find resources on how to cope with anxiety. If we can help students say, well, what can we do to try to address it in a manner that we can do right here in the classroom? Is it something, can you go home and go for a run around the block? Is that going to make you feel better? Is that going to calm you? Consider what types of things might be causing that. What can we do to work with that and cope with that? And that's where we bring in the connectedness to the different social workers or the different counselors at your schools or the school psychologists, whoever it might be that could aid you in that if it's something that's out of your wheelhouse.